Hello and welcome to the Luv Doc podcast with hosts Waldo Wachewski and Ophelia Brewski.
The Luv Doc got this letter from a listener. We'll call him Solo in 25.
Okay.
And Solo's dealing with, well, a relationship dilemma. And not just any dilemma. This one's got layers. Like an onion, but hopefully less tear-inducing.
Yeah, those relationship onions, they can be tough.
So we're here to help him sift through it all. But also, you know, this is for all of you listening too, because Solo's situation, well, it speaks to some bigger stuff happening in relationships today.
Absolutely. Like, we're talking shifting dynamics, communication styles, even the role of therapy in our modern world. It's juicy.
It is. So Solo, he's in this relationship that's hit, let's just say, a rough patch. He and his girlfriend are on a break right now. She's suggesting therapy, and he's
hesitant.
To put it mildly, he's not exactly thrilled about the idea. But the thing is, his story, it's like this perfect example of how these, broader societal changes are playing out in real life.
Totally. What might seem like, just a couple arguing about therapy, it's actually reflecting these deeper questions, like control and autonomy in relationships.
Exactly, because Solo's feeling like his girlfriend's being disrespectful, going out with friends, not answering his text right away. But she's feeling like he's being controlling. It's like, where do you even begin to untangle that?
Right. And remember, we're only getting Solo's side of the story here.
Right.
But even from his letter, we can see these traditional expectations of, what it means to be a man in a relationship and how they're kind of clashing with these more modern views of equality.
Yeah, because historically, it was like the man had all the power, right? Finances, social life, even how emotions were expressed.
Yeah.
But thank goodness that's changing.
Huge shift. And like any big shift, it can cause some friction if it's not dealt with, openly and honestly.
It's like we're in this in-between stage, right? Where the old rules don't work, but the new ones are still, being written.
Exactly. So where does therapy fit into all of this? Well, first, we have to recognize how this power dynamic is playing out in Solo's situation. He might be feeling this loss of control, and that's feeding into the resistance to therapy.
So it's not even about therapy itself or what it represents, admitting he needs help.
Bingo. And then to add another layer of complexity, we have this advice column from, wait for it, the Luv Doc.
Oh, the Luv Doc. Now, his response, let me tell you, it's a wild ride.
He does not hold back.
Full of humor, pop culture references. It's like he's tackling this super serious topic through a lens of pure entertainment. I mean, we've got insurance conspiracies, AI anxieties.
Don't forget the potential celebrity brawl.
Right. Geico Gecko versus Jake from State Farm. I mean, come on.
But here's the thing.
Okay, what's this?
He's using this humor, right, this playful tone, to address something really important, societal expectations around men and relationships. It's like this sneaky way to disarm people, make them more open to these potentially challenging ideas.
And he doesn't shy away from calling Solo out. He pretty much says, get over yourself, dude, and consider therapy.
Straight up.
He even throws in a line like, women were having their own thoughts as well. I mean, that's a direct challenge to how Solo's seeing the situation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. He's pointing out that Solo's girlfriend needing space, well, it might not be about disrespecting him. It could be about her own need for autonomy.
Which circles back to that whole power dynamic we were talking about. It's a wake-up call for Solo and anyone clinging to these, outdated relationship expectations. And that brings us to therapy. But before we jump into whether Solo should go or not, let's talk about therapy itself. I mean, what comes to mind when you hear the word therapy, listener? Any preconceived notions floating around?
I think a lot of people, they picture that classic scene, right? Lying on a couch, pouring your heart out to some silent therapist who's analyzing your every word.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Straight out of an old movie. But the reality is therapy, it's way more diverse, way more adaptable than that. So it's not just about digging up childhood trauma and all that.
Not at all. There are tons of approaches, different techniques, and the focus, it can be anything from, dealing with specific mental health issues to just improving communication skills, navigating those tricky life transitions.
It's interesting because I think that might be part of what's making Solo hesitate.
Yeah.
He might not even really understand what therapy is all about.
Right. It's that fear of the unknown can be a pretty big hurdle.
For sure. So if you were talking to someone like Solo who's, resistant to therapy, what would you say? How would you approach that?
Well, I'd start by explaining that therapy, it's a safe space, right? Totally confidential, a place to explore your thoughts and feelings without judgment. It's like having, A personal trainer, but for your mind.
I like that. A mental fitness coach.
Exactly. Someone to help you, understand your thought patterns, learn those coping mechanisms, and ultimately build a stronger, more resilient sense of self.
So for Solo, who's dealing with, communication issues, anger management, therapy could give him the tools to understand those reactions, maybe find healthier ways to express his emotions.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's about helping each person understand their role in the situation, take responsibility for their actions, and develop strategies to make positive changes.
And the Luv Doc, he makes this interesting point. He suggests that avoiding therapy, it can actually be a form of self-sabotage, like you're actually hurting yourself in the long run.
He's got a point. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to really face ourselves, We might resist therapy because it feels too vulnerable, too challenging, maybe even a little threatening to our ego.
Who wants to admit they've got stuff to work on, right?
It's human nature to resist change, but here's the catch. By avoiding that self-reflection, we might actually be perpetuating the very problems we're trying to avoid.
So Solo, by refusing therapy, he could be missing this opportunity to improve his communication, manage his anger, and build a healthier relationship.
Exactly. And the benefits, they go beyond just the relationship, right? Improved communication, self-awareness, those things can ripple out to all areas of life. Work, family, friendships.
It's true. But let's be real, therapy isn't always easy to access. There's the cost, finding the right therapist, not to mention the stigma that still surrounds mental health.
Yeah, you've hit on some major barriers there. Therapy can be expensive, insurance coverage is all over the map, and finding the right therapist can feel, overwhelming. And yeah, unfortunately, that stigma around mental health, it's still lingering.
So what options are out there for someone facing those barriers? Is there any hope?
Oh, absolutely. Lots of therapists offer sliding scale fees or payment plans. Community mental health centers, they provide services that are low cost or even free. And online therapy platforms, those have exploded in popularity, offering more flexibility and affordability.
And there are so many amazing self-help resources out there. Books, podcasts, online communities. I mean, they're not a replacement for professional help, but they can offer valuable information and support.
For sure. And I can't emphasize this enough. Seeking help, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to admit you need support and to take those steps towards growth.
So back to Solo and his, shall we say, ultimatum. Therapy or the relationship's over. Knowing everything we've talked about, what advice would you give him?
Well, I can't give direct advice, but I would encourage Solo to see this not as an ultimatum, but as an opportunity. An opportunity for growth, self-discovery, and potentially a much stronger relationship.
The Luv Doc, he puts it this way, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically says, go ahead, wing it. You'll probably lose your girlfriend, but hey, you'll save some money and avoid all that uncomfortable self-knowledge. Makes you think,
It does. The choice is ultimately Solo's. He can stay stuck in his patterns, risk losing the relationship, or he can embrace the challenge, step outside his comfort zone, and embark on this journey of personal growth.
We've covered a lot of ground here, the complexities of relationships, the potential of therapy, the importance of looking inward. But let's zoom out for a second. What does all this mean for relationships in general? Like, what's the big picture here?
That's a great question, and it's what we're going to tackle next. Buckle up, because we're diving into how shifting gender roles, communication styles, it's all reshaping the very fabric of relationships. It's going to be a wild ride.
All right, deep divers, we've made it. Final leg of the journey. We've broken down Solo's situation, dug into therapy, but now let's go big picture. Zoom out. Relationships in general. What's changing? What's staying the same? And what does all this mean for you listening right now?
It's fascinating because we are right smack dab in the middle of this massive shift in how relationships work. I mean, everything, gender roles, how we communicate, even like how technology is playing a part. It's all changing super fast.
Yeah. It's like someone threw out the old relationship rule book, and we're all trying to figure out the new game, I mean, think about it. A few decades ago, it was pretty straightforward. Men, breadwinners, women, homemakers. But now, whoa. Talk about a different ballgame.
Totally different. Now you've got both partners often juggling careers, kids, their own dreams, everything. It's opened up amazing opportunities, don't get me wrong. Equality, individual fulfillment. But it definitely comes with a whole new set of challenges.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of challenges, can we talk about the elephant in the room? Technology. I mean, social media, dating apps, this constant pressure to be connected 24/7. It's changed everything. How we connect, how we communicate, Even how we define what a relationship has.
It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure. Like, on one hand, technology, incredible for connection, but on the other hand, it creates all this new anxiety, new pressures. You see these picture-perfect relationships online, and they're like, wait, is mine even real? And sometimes I think all that online stuff, it comes at the expense of, like, real intimacy, you know?
Okay, so big question. With all this craziness going on, all this change, what does the future of relationships even look like? Are we heading toward this utopia of equal partnerships? Or is it going to be like a dystopian world of lonely people with superficial connections? I'm getting some serious Black Mirror vibes here.
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball. But honestly, I think it comes down to our ability to adapt, to communicate, to really cultivate what we call emotional intelligence.
Okay, emotional intelligence. Now that sounds deep. Break it down for us. What does that actually mean?
So emotional intelligence is basically being able to understand your own emotions, but also being able to recognize and understand how other people are feeling. It's being self-aware, having empathy, and having the skills to navigate all those messy, complicated social situations, with grace and understanding.
So it's like being in tune with your own feelings and the feelings of the people around you, kind of like, what? A relationship ninja.
Exactly. And as our world gets more complex, more interconnected, this ability to connect on an emotional level, it's becoming essential.
Especially in relationships, right? If you can't communicate your needs, if you don't understand where your partner's coming from, if you can't work through those disagreements, you're headed for trouble.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to Solo and his whole dilemma. Therapy or no therapy? The key to a successful future in his relationship and in life, I think, lies in those very skills we're talking about. Emotional intelligence, communication.
So it's bigger than just this one relationship. It's about equipping ourselves for healthier, happier connections in every area of our lives. And the Luv Doc, he said it best, even with his, quirky way of putting things. He said, choosing to avoid self-knowledge, it might be the most costly decision we ever make.
He's right. The future of relationships, it's not set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make, the skills we develop, the things we value.
Powerful stuff. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a little challenge for everyone listening. What can you do right now, today, to build your own emotional intelligence, strengthen those communication skills, and build those unshakable relationships? It's something to think about. It can lead to some pretty incredible personal growth.
And who knows, maybe even spark some really amazing conversations with the people you care about most.
And that, my friends, is a wrap. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride into the world of relationships. We'll be back next week with a whole new topic, a fresh perspective. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those conversations flowing.
To read the column that spawned this podcast, go to austinchronicle.com/columns/the Luv Doc. There are probably worse things to do with your time, right?